Hi guys, welcome to this week's episode of Project OZTOG. I'm Rob, here's Chris, and this week we're discussing drones. Let's dive right into it. Now, I will start off with saying both myself and Chris own drones. We fly them regularly. I really like drones.
It's so much fun. So much fun.
They're really cool, a lot of fun. But by the time we get to the end of this podcast this week, what we want to do is kind of determine whether they're worth the investment.
So drones are very expensive these days, aren't they? Especially the decent ones. I mean, there's a bit of a range out there, but if you're going for a decent one, like a DJI, for example, you're looking at about $1,000 for the entry-level ones, give or take. What drone do you have, Rob?
I have the DJI Spark, so fairly basic entry-level drone.
Yeah. And with everything that you have, your full setup, what, like about $1,000, probably a bit over that?
Yeah, I think it was about, I've got the Fly More kit, so 2 batteries, extra props, controller, cables, little case that comes with a little bag, guards and everything like that. And it sent me back just over $1,000 or just under $1,000, I think it was.
Yeah, so, you definitely need extra batteries, don't you?
I mean,
100%. Regardless of what drone you fly, you're always going to need extra batteries. So whilst you can get a drone at a decent price for with a single battery, by the time you're putting in those extra batteries and additional charger and whatnot, it ends up being over that. And for someone who's new in photography, that's a lot of money, isn't it?
And look, it is a huge investment, but to me, it's kind of, I think it depends how dedicated you want it to be. So I think you can get started really cheaply with a basic drone. And I probably recommend people don't invest too heavily in the front end. You want to start off with something that you know you're probably going to crash. Do you know what I mean? You always probably crash your first drone. So something very small, something very basic. You don't want to be spending much above $300, I feel. And then once you feel comfortable flying that, then you want to explore the more expensive drones and stuff like that down the track. So I probably would recommend, look, DJI make really awesome drones, and feel free, DJI, if you're listening to this, to comment and flick us some drones. That'd be good. But
reach out,
reach out. That's it. But I think ultimately, a basic entry level drone is going to serve you really well if you start your journey off. But let's come back to that. Let's come back to the question whether they're worth the investment or not. Let's look at, are drones a novelty or offer a new level of creativity?
I think this one definitely comes down to where you live. For me, I think it's a new level of creativity because I'm not in a dense city area. If you live in a dense city area or somewhere that's a no-fly zone, then unless you can actually get out on a daily or weekly basis to fly it, with lockdown at the moment, I mean, I know it's not forever, but especially with lockdown at the moment, it just, if I just purchased a drone, I would feel like it's not worth the investment.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think drones add a really nice level of creativity to your photography. They basically open up a whole world, a whole different perspective on the world, basically. Something that was only open to those photographers who could afford aerial points of view, so from fixed wing aircraft or helicopters and stuff like that to shoot. And though they're still expensive today, nevertheless, when back 5 years ago, it cost you thousands of dollars to take a helicopter up, or or you live into one of the Joy flights. So a couple $100, and they're not there for you to take photos; they're there to enjoy a flight, basically. So I think drones really open up that kind of level of perspective and gives you a new vantage point over, you can go to somewhere that may be rinsed completely, exhausted for photography. Like, there's been photographers there hundreds of thousands of times, hundreds of thousands of images. Putting the drone up in the air can just open up a whole new world of, perspective for you.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point, because so much of the time, and I didn't even think about this when I first started with my drone, But so much of the time, you're always just stuck at a ground level, or maybe a sort of eye line, depending on where you're shooting from. When you're flying a drone and you're trying to capture images with that, or even video with that, it just gives you a whole new perspective, doesn't it? It's something that you don't even think about, but until you're actually up there, you actually have to stop and reconsider how you're actually taking or composing the photo, because just taking it in your hand and adjusting like that is no longer good enough. You got to actually figure out, okay, maybe a top down is a better shot, or maybe going at the right of the line of the horizon is a better shot.
Yeah, that's right.
Whatever it is, it's so much different mindset you got to be in when you're doing drone photography.
I think it kind of just opens that perspective world up to you. So normally our level of perspective is above our heads, really low to the ground, or at our normal eye level, or anywhere in between, right? So a drone offers you the advantage of being able to go up higher, kind of move back a bit, top down kind of view. So it opens up a whole new level of perspective, which I think is awesome. And I love that about my drone. That's one of the things I really love about droning. It's also one of the things that, as a photographer, I mainly use my drone for stills. So I don't really do much video. And I've been pushing myself, well, I was before lockdown, to take more video of the drone and use it every time I take it out now. I try to do a bit more video with it just to see how that perspective plays out.
Yeah, I think drones on the video side of things are a really great tool for video, for storytelling, I should say.
Yes.
So instead of just taking photos with it, it also basically allows you to get a wider field of view, or a sort of panning shot of where you might be in a location. There's so many, you scroll through Instagram, you see a whole bunch of reels where it's taken on a drone shot where the person, and just does a quick sort of 10 degree, 20 degree pan shot, and it just gives a whole look of the environment. And without that drone, you would be hard pressed to get that.
Yeah, and look, I love those kind of panning around shots. I'm also love the shots where they kind of follow the cars in their YouTube videos, or
so good.
I watch a lot of photography videos and also a lot of camping YouTube and stuff like that. So the ability of the drone to track a car or track a person as they walk or along the beach is phenomenal.
Yeah, so 100%.
I think it really opens up that level of storytelling for a video person. So look, I reckon they're not a novelty. I reckon they've gone well beyond novelty now, and they kind of are a really interesting tool in a photographer's repertoire now. So
100%. I think the other side of it as well, and again, this isn't something that you necessarily think about before you purchase it, but the other side of it is also being cautious of what's happening around you while you're flying it.
Yes.
It's so easy just to get caught up in the moment and be looking at the screen in front of you and looking up at the drone, for example, and you don't even notice that maybe someone has come into your sort of field where you're flying it. And so, you just got to be careful with flying it, because there's a lot of idiots out there who take a drone up and then ruin it for the rest of us. So I think, especially with photography, I think photographers overall are generally pretty cautious with it, but I think it's always important just to make sure that if you are going to get a drone, just make sure that you're doing everything properly and safely, so that other people can come around and fly it without too many restrictions.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing. So I think you do have a level of responsibility. And this will take us to our next point, which is really about drones. Are they worth the hassle of licensing and just the general hassle you get when you fly them around, and restrictions and stuff like that? I will apologize. One of my lights just went out, so I'm just going to push on, and I apologize in advance, guys. But to me, drones, this is an issue I have. There is a bit of hassle when you go out and fly them. They're heavily restricted in most places, so you can't fly them in a lot of places where you'd like to fly them. So places like national parks, obviously a lot of places around the cities and outer suburbs. As you come into the city, it becomes heavily restricted. When you move out, like I said, national parks are restricted. Places where you'd really like to fly it, you generally can't. And then you've got things like army bases, Air Force, airports, all those sort of things which really prevent you from taking part and flying it, really, or heavily restricted. Now, in saying that, I'm a huge advocate for drone safety and following the rules of drones. The rules are there to protect people. So this is by no means a gripe and saying we should all just fly as we will, but
maybe we can have a national day where it's just like fly your drone day, and you just get to fly it wherever you want for a day. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think,
comment.
I think the biggest thing is you need to fly your drone safely, and most of the people take that. So, like, I fly my drone where I'm allowed to, but I'll fly really early in the morning. So, generally on sunrise and just after that kind of sunrise period, or on dusk and as the sun is setting. So, that kind of hour and a half before the sun goes down, I'll start flying. And it's often when you have the best light for photography anyway. Yeah. So it kind of means that there's not many people around anyhow. And to me, I'm getting the best shots I want because the lighting's okay. And I'm not bothering anyone. As soon as it starts getting too busy, or people start coming along beaches, or people, kind of coming in and out of where I'm flying the drone from, I kind of land and put it away because it's just not worth the hassle or the risk to other people.
Yeah, I've seen it. That's a very good point, because I've seen a lot of people who are flying drones where it's quite busy. And I think you and I have been in a fair few places where it's been quite busy, and we've wanted to fly our drone, but we're just like, nah, it's not worth it. And this guy over here is flying his drone, and I just look at these people and I think, like, you're putting a bad name for the rest of us who want to do it the right way to get 20 seconds of footage, maybe. Yeah, it just blows my mind. But at the same time, maybe they might have taken off when it was quiet or something.
Like, I mean, you can get some really awesome drone footage along beaches and ocean pools and stuff like that. However, those places tend to be really heavily populated in summer and stuff like that when the sun comes up and it's warm. Like, you should probably, by the time 8 o'clock, 8:30 comes around, you really want to be landed and on your way to get a coffee or breakfast rather than flying your drone around with people walking up and down the beach, swimming in the pools and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? And at that stage, the light's kind of getting harsh anyhow.
Yeah, I was going to say, at that stage, the light's getting quite, well, just the general whole scene is going to be quite different from what it was when the sun was setting.
100%. 100%.
So you should just be packing up and be heading off. What is going through these people's mind?
Yeah. So look, do I think they're worth the hassle? And with licensing now, I'm also registered as a drone pilot. I don't fly it for business purposes. Although I can now, because I am registered, I can use it for promotion and stuff like
flex,
that.
But okay.
Sorry? No, but you mean,
okay.
you kind of, I mean, that was one of the things. If I had a great image, I wanted to use it on my website and part of my portfolio. Yeah. And to do that, I had to follow certain rules. So I did that.
That's right.
But like, my drone is, a number of years old now, and it's nowhere near 4K or any of that stuff. So, like, is it worth the hassle of doing all the licensing and stuff like that? I don't know. I think I agree. You have to comply with it, and it's important to comply. But is it worth all the licensing? If I was getting paid a lot of money to do it, 100%, I would do the course. I would do the, pay you a couple grand to do the actual pilot course, get all that done, register my drones, have a few drones and stuff like that. But to me, at the moment, my level, what I have now, is as far as I will probably take it for what I want it. Now, you have quite a few drones, right? You own more than one.
Yeah, I have a few different ones.
Yeah. How do you feel about
that? I share your opinion. For me, it's not worth it. It's just not worth it. Simple as that. Like, I think the course is what, $1,000 or something like that.
Probably more.
Probably a little more.
Yeah, $1,000 would be cheap, I reckon.
Yeah, I mean, how much is it anyway?
It's registration is free.
Yeah, but like, how much is it to do like the proper like course for it?
A couple grand, depending what level you want to use. I think the one I last looked at, it was $2,500 to fly purely commercially. It's a couple grand.
Yeah. See, I just can't get my head around that.
Yeah.
Like, understand why it is that, but to pay that, it's not me. It's not for me.
I kind of agree. I think if you had less restriction about where you could fly them. Now, I know there's reasons why you can't fly them in certain airspaces around national parks and stuff like that. That's fine. I get that. But even when I traveled internationally, you go somewhere really, really cool. And, I can think of New Zealand. Every time we went somewhere awesome, there's amazing blue water. I'm like, this rope bridge. I'm like, this would be an awesome scene for a drone. you get to the car park, and as soon as you step out and start up the path, there's a no drone flying.
Yeah.
In Australia, you go to like somewhere like the Three Sisters and stuff like that, and you hit with restrictions and stuff. It's just really difficult to see where you get the value about having like a really high end one or updating it more regularly than what I do.
Yeah.
I don't think there's value there, to be honest with you, in regard. It's not worth the hassle, because even when you comply with it, you still can't fly in certain spaces unless you register and get permission. So
I mean, it'd be good if like when you got the permission or when you got the approval that allowed you to fly in certain airspaces more so than that of the non.
I think you have to kind of know where you're going to fly and apply for permissions and stuff like that, and you can achieve that. But that's a lot of planning.
What does it though for like a few grand, like a piece of paper?
But you have to sit down and go, I'm going to go do this today, or I'm in this window between this date and this date, I'm going to be flying in this space for this purpose. And you kind of have to then get approved. So I think it kind of opens up. It is a bit of hassle. So yeah, they're awesome, really high level of creativity, and it opens up new perspective. I question the hassle involved in actually flying it sometimes, but in saying that, I can understand why there's so much hassle, because they kind of have to legislate for common sense, right?
Yeah.
Because there are people, I see people do stupid stuff. Well, I see people do stupid stuff with drones all the time, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, you just get a whole bunch of idiots doing stupid stuff with drones and then just ruining it for the rest of us out here just wanting to capture some cool content. So,
but in saying that, you see people fly in an area where they're not meant to, but there's literally no harm at all.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So that's the other kind of
side of it.
Yeah. Like you look at it and go, well, why, what's the hassle of flying here? What's happening? Why can't they fly here? So that's the other side of it as well. So I can understand both sides of the argument, and I kind of have a foot in each side of the camp. So I get it. Now, back to what we initially touched on at the start.
Yeah.
Are drones worth the investment? As it stands now,
everything we've just said.
Yeah. As it stands now, what would you go out and buy a new drone today?
As it stands, I wouldn't. I mean, look, if I didn't have a drone at this point in time, I would consider it. But again, for me, if I was just going into it as a fresher, I would, just because there's so many restrictions. If you have a look on one of those maps where it says like no fly zone, and if you didn't have access to a car or somewhere to get outside the city, I wouldn't. If you lived on a remote, remote farm or something, then I would say go for it. You could probably get some awesome shots. You're not bothering too many people, if anyone. It's a great way to see the land, and you could probably see the cattle if you're going that way. But for me, living where I am in Sydney, I wouldn't get one. I mean, they're a lot of fun, don't get me wrong. But for me, I personally wouldn't get one. What about yourself?
So personally, I would, if I didn't own a drone, I would still go out and get one. Yeah. I don't live quite as close to the city as what you do. And I go down the coast a lot. I travel in the mountains a lot. So I do have plenty of opportunity to fly them. Yeah. As you increasingly become closer to the city, on the way down to where I like to go down the coast or up the coast, there's a few Air Force bases on the coast. And I'm thinking of two areas in particular, and they're big RAF bases or big Navy bases. And the no fly zone around them is massive and takes up a large portion of the coastline. So even then, outside of those hours, if you look it up on the app, you can fly at certain times and certain days and stuff. So it's about knowing the rules there. But I think I would probably still get one. I think they're still worth the investment if you haven't got one. How much of an investment are they worth? I can't answer that for people. Look, I looked at updating my drone last year, probably twice. Once at the start of the year, and again halfway through the year. And I just couldn't justify spending another $1,200 on another firewall combo for the entry, not the entry level, just the next level up in the DJI system. I just didn't think it was the product itself is worth it 100%, and technology built into them is awesome. And again, if someone went, here's the latest DJI Mavic or whatever it is now, or the Air, I'd be ecstatic, right? But the reality is the price tag isn't a reflection of the value of the product. It's the hassle and the ability to use it that I put to consideration at the forefront. Like, do I go out and buy another mirrorless camera or another lens or something like that, which I'm going to get far more use out of than what I would my drone? And like I said, I use it a lot for stills. I do a bit of video, but not a great deal. So I use it for photos a lot more. So my little DJI Spark, even though it's probably almost 5 years old now, 6 years old maybe, I still get great value out of that. And I think that still takes a great image.
Yeah.
So I don't have plans anymore.
In saying that, just something that I was just thought of is that there are FPV drones which are a bit cheaper, but they are a bit more like there's a bit more of a learning curve to them because you got to basically program them and all this kind of stuff. So they are a bit cheaper. So they're at like half the price, depending on which one you're looking at. But I would say actually, and this kind of goes back to your first point, for some of the FPVs, they're all full manual. So you're not having to spend, $1,000 on a fully sort of smart, if you like, smart drone that pretty much knows everything when you just press a button and take off.
Yeah.
So those are a good starting point, because basically if you build them, then you're going to know how to put them back together.
Yeah. And look, I reckon that probably a really good, and that's almost a different hobby though, right? That's almost like purely droning. It becomes a hobby then. But like I said, I don't have an issue with investing in a drone at the moment. But to me, if you have one and it's still flyable and still taking decent images, I wouldn't rush out and upgrade it. I just don't think it's value there.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Well, this is an interesting topic. So I'd like to know what people think. So guys, we're almost wrapping up now. But again, if you've enjoyed the conversation, I think we should revisit some of this again in a couple of weeks in a later episode, because I think once we get out of lockdown, we start flying drones again, we might have a different perspective. It's been probably about 3 or 4 months since I've flown my drone properly. So maybe once I get up in the air again, I'll have a different perspective. You might have a different perspective as well. Look, subscribe if you've enjoyed our conversation. If you want to take part, comment. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're
on TikTok now.
Yeah, we're on TikTok now as well. TikTok's really cool.
Project OZTOG.
Project OZTOG. Subscribe, ring the bell, guys, so you get notifications. Thursdays for the YouTube channel. Saturday morning around midday for the podcast. Take it easy, guys. Please get involved. Let us know what you think about drones. See you next week, guys. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.